On this edition of For the Record, it's time to talk high school athletics. For the Record starts right now.
Commonwealth's attorneys and I have concluded that the NCAA sanctions were overreaching and unlawful.
Someone's got to develop a product, and you and I, as a consumer, are going to want to buy.
The country needs a comprehensive energy plan.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Great show on hand for you today as we have the Executive Director of the PIAA, Dr. Bob Lombardi. Bob, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking. Getting
right into it, what is the current state of high school athletics in the state of Pennsylvania?
Well, I think we're in good shape. I think our athletes have done very, very well. I think the success of some of our athletes moving on to the next level is terrific, but the overwhelming majority of our students just participate in athletics at the high school level because of participation and the values and lessons that they learn from it, and we're really happy with what's happening.
I've always thought athletics is so integral to the experience of growing up, and it also plays an educational role. With revenues of schools going down and the cost of athletics going up, pay for play seems to be coming back more into focus. Is there a danger if too many schools adopt that the participation level is actually going to go down?
Well, we haven't seen that because our numbers have been holding steady or rising every year. And an athletic budget is only 1 to 3% max of the total operating budget of a school. And it is the best public relations program a school could have. The trouble is, because it's the most visible, people think that's a place that they should cut first off, and that's not, we don't believe that's a healthy attitude to take, that with booster clubs and community support, we can support educational-based athletics for a long time. And at that price, 1 to 3% of a total operating budget, it's probably the best value that we have in education today.
Have some schools ever approached the PIAA and say, we might need some help, maintaining some of our sports to make sure we could give a broad base to our students?
A number of years ago, probably it's right about 3 now, some of our urban schools had some real trouble. And they did approach us, and out of that came our foundation. And we are trying to build up a PIAA Foundation to allow schools that come into financial situations or to provide leadership opportunities for young people. This year we're going to fund through our foundation 10 students to go to the National Federation Leadership Conference in Indianapolis in July. So we feel by furnishing leadership and possibly financial at some time, we're not there yet, we need to build it up quite a bit, we would continue to replenish those activity programs that we need that are so important to our schools.
One thing that today's youth is all about is specialization in sports. You don't see many of the, just using male sports as an example, you don't see many of the football, wrestler, baseball type players anymore. Your opinion on that, and maybe is there a program to try and broaden that out to make sure that maintains?
Well, I think in that situation, I think it depends on the level of school you're at. I think in our small rural schools, and you're from Mahanoy, so you know how people went season to season. Athletes are still doing that. They're doing that in my local school where my children go. But as you move up to the larger classifications, because competition's a little keener and the opportunities to play in outside programs become more advanced, I think you'll see more specialization. So it may be the size of a school or the location geographically that may be driving that bus.
In your opinion, what's the main problem facing the PIAA today?
Oh, I think it's competition. Everybody's happy until a certain team wins. And then when a certain team wins, they must be doing something wrong. So I think that's difficult because if you look at the history that we've had in whatever sport we may have, you'll see that things are cyclical. Sometimes schools, especially smaller schools, have a great 2, 3, 4-year run because they have a good run of athletes. You can pick, I know we talked locally here of a young man that works on staff from Southern Columbia. Southern has a very good football program for years, and Coach Roth does an excellent job. And he's built a great program, but they haven't been as successful the last couple of years. So that's that cyclical nature that I'm speaking of.
Taking me right into the next question, I'll call it the assault on public schools. For years, it was always said that Catholic schools get to cherry pick. Now, since I believe it was 2005, the Philly public, aka charter schools, were able to come into the PIAA. Your opinion on that, and there's always calls that something needs to be done about the charter schools in the state.
Well, the charter school issue is one that I brought forward last year to the Oversight Committee, and I explained to them that we feel that they're the only students that have dual eligibility. They can be eligible at the charter school if they have an athletic program, and they can be eligible at the school of residence. No other student has that ability. I raised the ire of some of our charter schools and then met with a good group of them in the Philadelphia area, and they made the recommendation to me that said that they would be willing to support one or the other, meaning if the charter school doesn't have an athletic program, they can play at the school of their residence. If the charter school does have an athletic program, then they can only play there. So that has not gained any traction at the legislative area, because the legislative area is really who controls that. Parochial schools were brought in the PIAA in 1972. Almost 25% of our membership is either parochial or charter, and they're member schools. And all I can say about people that have that blanket coverage that, well, they're doing this, they're doing that, we have a process in place that if people, public or private, is doing something wrong, that they can bring those things forward to our local district committee and we can have a hearing and adjust it. The board has also allowed me to hire an investigator. I haven't used one yet. I'm kind of waiting. I would like, not that I don't want to wish any more work on us or any ill will, but if there's an opportunity, we will use that. And the other part that we've had to try to clean this up a little bit in a perception standpoint is all schools must put their eligibility rosters for every sport on our website. So now I can look at yours and you can look at mine, and we can track if there's some mobility of students from school A to school B, and if they are, is there paperwork and proper transfer information to follow them. So we're trying to make sure that everybody's playing on the same page.
Very interesting, especially that investigator part. We'll get more into that later. We're also going to talk about the classification system in the state of Pennsylvania. Back with more right after this. Welcome back to For the Record, talking with the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Association, Dr. Bob Lombardi. And Dr. Lombardi, we left off talking about public, private, charter schools as well. I worked in Virginia. I know about the VHSL. They had two systems. Would that be something that you're in favor of, and do you see Pennsylvania adopting that?
Well, the second answer is really easy. I don't see us adopting it because that would take an act of the legislature. In 1972, PIAA was separate, and there was a PCIAA and a PIAA. And an act of the legislature in 1962 said PIAA is going to be open to all schools in the state of Pennsylvania, and that ended that. Virginia, as you know, is a public school system only, the same as New York State. They're a public school system only. So they have a little different dynamic than we do. As I said earlier, our membership is almost 25% with publics and charters. And with the sentiment in the legislature of schools of choice, I don't see it going back the other direction.
Moving on to the classification system. Pennsylvania, a lot of schools in it. Only 4 classes. I believe it's the second highest per class on what it takes to win your state championship in respective sports. There is a proposal out there to go to a 6A format. Your thoughts on it? Does it happen? When does it happen?
Well, here's let me give you the timeline. Right now, our board meeting is May 20th, and in front of our board, we will put 8 proposals that came out of a joint meeting from our Board of Directors Strategic Plan Committee in conjunction with our Football Steering Committee. And the proposals are these: 4 classes, 6 classes, 6 classes with the Super 700, meaning the highest class is all schools that would have enrollment of 700 and up, and the other 5 would take the remainder of the schools and break them equally, and then a Super 800. So they're the 4 different options. But the interesting twist is 2 different ways to classify. One, the way we do now, where we just equally spread them based on all school students on the enrollment sheet that comes in October of our even-numbered years. However, our odd-numbered years. However, there's a plus 10% that is the second way to class that we've never had. And what that is our public schools have to count charter, cyber charter, home, technological, magnet, all those type of students. And the schools are saying, these students aren't playing athletics. Yeah. So let's only count 10% of those instead of all of them and see where that puts us in the classification. Because the lament from some of the schools has been our other schools, our parochials and our charters don't have to count them. Gotcha. So it's another opportunity to try to keep that playing surface level. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, just looking at the proposal, I mean, it's a lot of information in here, a lot of dates. I mean, you really have to understand what you're looking at to even be able to comprehend it. Obviously, there's a lot of pushback. Some of it is related to the start dates with Labor Day, with kids working and things like that. You brought up the climatization, the temperature. Pennsylvania, you start in the dog days of summer, you end down in Hershey, speaking of football, in the first or second week of December. Not a lot of states have that difference from start to finish state.
Right. You're right. And this year, I'm embarrassed to say, but this is just the schedule we have of 16 weeks. And that's why people want to look at more classes to try to shorten the season. We finish our championship Saturday, December 18th this year. We are as late as Georgia, Florida, and I believe Texas. Now, last time I looked at a map, we're nowhere near to their latitude or longitude. We're certainly a lot north. And that's tough putting people out in practice and that length of season. So that's something we're looking at. You spoke about heat acclimatization. We've changed ours this year, and we're going to have 10 days, 5 days of heat acclimatization before a team can start practice. Then once they start practice on the 17th of August, their first scrimmage date then can be that Saturday. So we will have 10 either 5 heat days and 10 practice days before our first competition. And that's more in line with the national standard, which is 10 to 14 days. So we feel very good about that, especially with all the information that's out there on concussion awareness. We're very, very fortunate that we have a state law that does that, as well as part of our physical form. Every parent and every student has to sign off on understanding the symptoms of concussions. And the other piece that we're lucky is many of our schools have athletic trainers on staff or they contract with them. It's very, very important.
Just jumping back to the classification system real quick. If you had your own personal choice, you had the sole decision, what would you do?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Putting you on the spot here.
Yeah,
a little bit.
and I kind of like it personally, but I think if I had my druthers, I'm not sure I would let I'd let the board and I would let the membership drive how many classes they want. But me personally, I would like to change the starting date somehow so that we don't have such an overlap and that 16-week season isn't so late. If we could get to a 15-week season and finish earlier, maybe no later than the first week of December, I think it would help our attendance at games. I think it would help our winter athletes. I think it would help our football and fall sport athletes, because then the season's not so long and people aren't getting beat up. You want to keep people healthy and safe, and I think a shorter season, if I had my druthers, would be priority one.
A lot of interesting stuff in that. It's definitely something that I think the public, everybody has to pay attention to, because it could change on a moment's notice. When we come back on For the Record, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges faced by the PIAA with officials, where the modern-day official is headed. Stay with us. You are watching WHVL's For the Record. Welcome back to For the Record. Time to talk officiating, your favorite part of high school athletics, college athletics, the fanatics out there, always the one getting all the heat after the game. And Dr. Lombardi, one challenge I think facing the PIAA is the average age of officials and the inability, it seems, to attract and then maintain young officials up through the ranks. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's an annual fight. Right now we have 14,092 registered officials. We're one of the largest groups in the country. And the reason that we can't attract more people than we do is abuse. People don't want to go out, young people don't want to go out on a field or a court and be screamed at. And that's the number one reason across the country. We, on an annual basis, recruit about 2,000 new people, but on an annual basis, we lose about 2,000 new people, maybe 1,750. So we're slowly gaining. The other part of it is people that are very, very good, especially our females and minorities. If they are have an aptitude for it and are pretty good, they get snapped up real quick by the colleges. And when you only have a couple days to work, do you want to work at a higher level with more pay than at the local level? So we end up being a little bit of a training ground for higher levels, but that's okay. We'll continue to work at it and see what we can do to get more young people involved.
One of those things that might inhibit the attraction of younger officials is always the cost. In baseball, it's like $400 or $500 to get the equipment, but there might be an extra added cost now, Act 153, with the clearances. How does the PIAA feel about that, and where do you think that's going to go?
Well, we haven't received a final answer on 153, and we're hoping that 153 will give us some wiggle room to allow officials to be much the way volunteers are, and they don't have to go through all those background clearances on an annual basis or on a 3-year certification. And the reason being is an official is always performing their duties in full public view, not only in front of spectators, but also in front of school people, coaching staffs, those type of things. So I've been at PIAA since 1988. And I'm here to tell you, we haven't had one instance where an official has done anything with a student on the competition surface. So that's a good thing, but we're hoping that the legislature can give us some type of wiggle room to provide us with some influence, because we're going to lose people. Mm-hmm. We're going to lose people. And especially in sports of swimming and wrestling and track and field, where our ages are up, and you know, if you don't have people to run contests, then people don't play, and that's, you know, we're all about the membership, and the membership is our schools and students playing games. None of us in PIAA exist without students playing games.
Another topic, unionization out of the WPIAL with their official. Do you see it going anywhere, and what do you think it would cost?
Well, that's a tough issue. I think that part of it, they have their lament is that they are employees. We don't believe that they're employees of our association. We think officials are independent contractors by a decree of the Pennsylvania Labor Relations Commission. So that's our position at this time. We will see what comes out of it. I really can't get into too much more than that at this time, because I don't want to put myself or anyone in a position that we're not playing fairly. So.
Gotcha. Some high-profile sports, basketball, football, soccer, they're creating regional assigners in certain parts of the state. Those regional assigners oftentimes aren't the PIAA interpreters. So then you have, and this was passed on to me by an official, there's some anxiety in the lower ranks about how do younger officials get seen to move up, which kind of goes to the recruitment question as well. Do you think the PIAA needs to come up with a single standard? Because if you're getting two interpretations, somebody's always going to say one's wrong on certain rules. How do you fix that?
Well, we think our interpretations will be consistent by people attending chapter meetings and being their interpreters being trained by our statewide rules interpreter. So that's our process, and our statewide rules interpreter gets his interpretations of the new rules or any new rules from our parent group, the National Federation of State High School Associations. So we think the chain of command and the line of delineation is clear, and people should be on the same page. But that is the rules education piece. That's separate than somebody assigning contests. I think assigners are good as long as the local schools get together and join and they decide to hire, whether it be an athletic director or whether it be a member of a chapter or an official or a retired official to do those. Whoever they hire, that is up to them as part of local control. But I think what's important is that the people that are making the assignments have some understanding of interscholastic athletics and the officiating part, so that you don't take a first-year person like me and put them with an experienced person like you, and you are in the biggest game of the year with two teams that are rivals, and I'm green. Yeah. So I think that's kind of part of the magic in it.
The evaluation system, I think the PIAA has come up with a new evaluation for football, soccer, and basketball. How is that process going, and what do you see as the next step? Because I am actually a three-sport official, and when I was in Virginia, I was evaluated in multiple times throughout the year. I have not yet been evaluated in Pennsylvania in 5 years.
Well, our evaluation system that we use, and we use it for mostly postseason, our contests, and we've done a pretty good job with that, where we'll have people assigned by the local officials reps that have an understanding of that sport go out and submit a report to our office, and then Pat Gephardt, our Assistant Executive Director, assigns contests as we move forward in our state championship play. Local season is a little different because it's really controlled by either the local league or, in many cases, the local chapter. So we would encourage our local chapters to continue to do that and help educate young officials like yourself to get better.
Dr. Lombardi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
And thank you all at home for watching this edition of For the Record. Stay with WHVL for the most up-to-date topics, ranging from anything from Middle East polities to, like we saw today, high school athletics in your state of Pennsylvania. Have a great day.